Rahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm Dr. Mavish. We're going to discuss today about pulmonary hypertension. So, pulmonary circulation is the vascular system that conducts blood from the right to the left side of the heart through the lungs. Pulmonary arteries are very thin walled and distensible. Pulmonary vascular resistance is a measure of impedance to flow in the pulmonary vasculature. PVR depends on the pulmonary artery pressure, left atrial pressure, and the cardiac output. Normal pulmonary artery pressure is 25 by 8 mmHg, and normal mean pulmonary artery pressure is 15 plus minus 3 mmHg. So, introduction is pulmonary hypertension is an abnormal elevation in pulmonary artery pressure. This is a feature of advanced disease. The pulmonary artery pressure and pulmonary vascular resistance progressively rises, leading to right heart failure and death. Over the years, improvement in understanding the pathogenesis and has resulted in the development of targeted approaches to the treatment of pulmonary hypertension. Survival advantages has also been shown with some of the pharmacological agents. So, pulmonary hypertension is a hemodynamic and pathophysiological condition is defined as an mean pulmonary arterial pressure is more than 25 mm of mercury at the rest by right heart catheterization. Pulmonary arterial hypertension is a clinical condition characterized by the presence of precapillary pulmonary hypertension in the absence of other causes of precapillary pulmonary hypertension such as pulmonary hypertension due to lung, chronic thromboembolic pulmonary hypertension, or other rare diseases. So, we will discuss the classification. We divided into many groups, like we have 5 groups, and among these 5 groups, the one is idiopathic, then we have an inheritable, then exposure to drug, toxin, persistent pulmonary hypertension of a newborn, and then collagen vascular disease, congenital heart disease, portal hypertension, HIV, schistosomiasis, and chronic hemolytic anemias. And persistent hypertension of a newborn here is written. Good. So this is group 1. Pulmonary veno-occlusive disease, PVOD, and pulmonary capillary hemangiomas are also occur in this group. So remember you guys that idiopathic, heritable, unknown, drug, and associations with connective tissue, HIV, portal hypertension, congenital heart disease, schistosomiasis, chronic hemolytic anemias, they all come in group 1 pulmonary hypertension. This is important to learn about the grouping because treatment is different in different groups. Now we have group 2. So group 2 is pulmonary venous hypertension. For you guys, something gonna bad with heart like systolic dysfunction and diastolic dysfunction, they end up with pulmonary venous hypertension, elevation in PAP with elevation in pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, and this is systolic, diastolic, and valvular disease. So if you guys remember that congenital heart disease be a part of group 1, and I think complex congenital will be a part of group 5. So this is to be remembered. So group 2 easy to remember: systolic, diastolic, and valvular diseases. Now we have group 3. This is pulmonary hypertension with hypoxemic lung disease. So we have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, we have interstitial lung disease, we have sleep disorder breathing, alveolar hypoventilation disorder, chronic exposure to a high altitude. Now we have 4, and this include chronic thromboembolic pulmonary hypertension, documentation of pulmonary arterial obstruction for more than 3 months, and this is because of chronic thromboembolic disease. Now this is a group 5, and again important things to be remembered: elevation in PAP is associated with a systemic disease, causal relation is not clearly understood, and they are hematological, systemic, metabolic, and other. In hematological is myeloproliferative disorder, splenectomy, sarcoidosis, pulmonary Langerhans, histiocytosis, neurofibromatosis, vasculitis. Metabolic disorder include glycogen storage disease, Gaucher disease, thyroid disorder, tumoral obstruction, fibrosing mediastinitis, chronic renal failure on dialysis. So something here is change like lymphangioneuromyomatosis and pulmonary Langerhans cytosis is now not a part of group 5. It's now a part of group 3 that includes etiology related to the lungs. These two diseases are now recently shifted again to group 3. This is to remembering, and otherwise here I think sarcoidosis is written here, which is important for you guys to remember it. Now, what is the reason for pathophysiology and what are the reasons that development of pulmonary hypertension in group 1? So affect the distal pulmonary arteries, in particularly are characterized by medial hypertrophy and eccentric and concentric intimal fibrosis. Recanalized thrombi appear as fibrous webs. Plexiform lesions and pulmonary veins are classically unaffected. This is all about group 1. So this is PVOD of group 1, pulmonary venous. So what happened in group 2? We remember that group 2 is for systolic dysfunction, diastolic dysfunction and valvular heart disease. This is characterized by enlarged and thickened pulmonary veins, pulmonary capillary dilatation, interstitial edema, alveolar hemorrhage and lymphatic vessels and lymph node enlargement. And distal pulmonary arteries may be affected. Group 3, pulmonary hypertension due to lung disease and or hypoxia, include medial hypertrophy and intimal obstructive proliferation of the distal pulmonary arteries. A variable degree of destruction of the vascular bed, emphysematous or fibrotic area may also be present. In group 4, which is CTEPH, is chronic thromboembolic pulmonary hypertension, is characterized by organized thrombi tightly attached to a medial layer in pulmonary arteries, replacing the normal intima. These may completely occlude the lumen or form different grades of stenosis, webs and bands. Collateral from systemic circulation can grow. In group 5, the reasons is unclear or there may be a multifactorial mechanism, includes condition with different pathological pictures, etiologies still unclear or it's multifocal. So these are the mechanisms and reasons for physiology. I just summarized it again, that in 1, the increase in pulmonary vascular resistance related to vasoconstriction, proliferation and obstructive remodeling of the pulmonary vessels wall, inflammation and thrombosis. And in 2, remember for 2 is for heart, 1 is for idiopathic, 2 is for heart. Passive backward transmission of the pressure elevation. The elevation of the PVR is due to an increase in vasomotor tone of pulmonary arteries and fixed structural obstructive remodeling. Now in 3, you remember this is due to lungs. So hypoxic vasoconstriction, mechanical stress of hyperinflated lung, inflammation and toxic effects of cigarette smoke. This is in 3. And in 4, the 4 is due to chronic thromboembolism, which is due to chronic pulmonary embolism, non-resolution of acute embolic masses which later undergo fibrosis, lead to mechanical obstruction of pulmonary arteries. So pulmonary thromboembolism is or in situ thrombosis may be initiated or aggravated by abnormalities in either the clotting cascade, endothelial cells or platelets. And in 5, it's all unclear in multifactorial mechanisms. So this is all about pathophysiologies. And then we have again pulmonary hypertension in front of us. It's characterized by presence of precapillary pulmonary hypertension in the absence of other causes of precapillary pulmonary hypertension. Mean PAP more than 25 mm of mercury, pulmonary capillary wedge pressure less than 15 mm of mercury. So the roles of prostacyclins, endothelial 1 and nitric oxide. And this is the reason that we are giving endothelial receptor antagonist and we are giving nitric oxide and we are giving vasodilators. Let's see what happened to a prostacyclin. Prostacyclin is a potent vasodilator, inhibit platelet activation and has anti-proliferative properties. Prostacyclin synthesis is decreased in the pulmonary arteries and pulmonary hypertension. Endothelial 1 is a potent vasoconstrictor and stimulate PAS-MC proliferation. So that's why we are giving endothelial receptor antagonist. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator and inhibitor of platelet activation and vascular smooth muscle cell proliferation. So once formed, the effects of nitric oxides are largely mediated by GMP, which is rapidly inactivated by PDE, especially the PDE5 isozymes. So about idiopathic. Idiopathic is sporadic without any family history, and it's more common in female. So patient can come to you with exertional dyspnea, easy fatigability, syncope, cough, hemoptysis, increased intensity of the pulmonary component of the second heart sound. So these are the signs you can have when you receive a patient with pulmonary hypertension. You can have a systolic ejection murmur from tricuspid regurgitation, which is morely seen in advanced age. You can have a diastolic murmur of pulmonary in severe pulmonary hypertension. You can have a parasternal impulse, which is due to a right ventricular hypertrophy. You can have a prominent A wave in jugular venous system. You can have all sign of right heart failure, jugular venous distension, and you can got a V wave if there's a tricuspid regurgitation. You can have an finding of hepatomegaly, which is tender hepatomegaly, ascites, and peripheral edema. So this is a functional status, and I'm skipping it. Those who have worse prognosis. So what are the tests we can have? ECG has sensitivity. This is electrocardiography, and ECG has sensitivity and specificity detecting significant pulmonary hypertension. We can have seen right ventricular hypertrophy. We can see right axis deviation, P pulmonale due to right atrial enlargement, ventricular edemias, and SPTs. So this is, you can see right ventricular hypertrophy with strain, right axis deviation, and increased P pulmonale, P wave amplitude in lead 2. In 90% of the patient with idiopathic, the chest radiograph is abnormal. Finding includes central pulmonary artery dilatation, which contrasts with proving loss of the peripheral blood vessels, and right atrium and RV enlargement may be seen. So the enlargement of the central pulmonary arteries with attenuation of the peripheral vessels, right ventricular enlargement are seen. So echocardiography, it is performed to estimate the pulmonary arterial systolic pressure and to assess RV size, thickness, and function. So these are the investigations you have to go for in a patient suspected with pulmonary hypertension. These are chest radiography, echocardiography, electrography, lung function test, ventilation perfusion scanning, HRCT scanning, pulmonary angiography, cardiac catheterization, and exercise testing. So you have to remember these investigations that when you have to diagnose pulmonary hypertension. In chest radiograph, again, as we discussed it earlier, enlargement of the pulmonary trunk, puring of the peripheral vessels of the pulmonary arterial tree, right ventricular hypertrophy, and so on. So this is all about pulmonary hypertension, and we will discuss as previously electrocardiography and echocardiography. We discussed earlier that thickened right ventricle, regurgitant flow across the tricuspid valve, and regurgitant flow across the pulmonic valve. So this is cardiac catheterization. You see, we put catheter in and we have to calculate the pressure of an end pulmonary artery, and we can do it for the determination of right atrial pressure, right ventricular pressure, pulmonary artery pressures, pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, pulmonary blood flow, and we can go it for vasoreactivity. So we divide it on the basis of grading. It's grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and grade 4. Other investigations are lung function tests, ventilation perfusion scanning, HRCT, lung biopsy, pulmonary angiography, and exercise testing. So multiple management, we have a calcium channel blocker, we have endothelial receptor antagonist, we have phosphodiesterase inhibitors, and we have prostacyclins analog. Okay, so calcium channel blocker, endothelial receptor antagonist, phosphodiesterase inhibitor, and prostacyclin analogs. So this is the important picture you guys see, that endothelial pathway that resulting in endothelial 1 and that resulting in constriction, so that we are giving a drug that is endothelial receptor antagonist, and that include bosentan, ambrisentan. So the other is nitric oxide pathway, and you know what the nitric oxide do is they increase guanylate cyclase, and that resulting in that convert GTP to CGMP, and the reason is that the calcium unable to bind to smooth muscles and resulting in relaxation. So we are giving nitric oxide analog. The other is prostacyclin pathway, and again it increasing the CAMP and resulting in relaxation. So important, you should remembering the name of these drugs. So endothelial receptor and blockers are bosentan and ambrisentan, and then we have phosphodiesterase inhibitor, sildenafil and vardenafil, and then we have prostanoids, ilioprost. Then we have the common drug are nitric oxides and calcium channel blocker. So these are the common drugs. And about for group 1 with a normal pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, treatment is related to the response to nitric oxide challenge, with those responsive being initially treated with calcium channel blocker. This is to remember, this is important thing. The other thing is, to those you have to be anticoagulate, and to those you have not to be anticoagulate. So about anticoagulation is often recommended and is required lifelong in chronic thromboembolic pulmonary hypertension. It should not be used if portal hypertension is present. So this is important for you guys. And something about calcium channel blockers indicated in patients who respond to vasodilators during catheterization, and we give high dose nifedipine 240 milligram, or we can give amlodipine, and it's a very good effects, regression of RV hypertrophy. Then we have an endothelial receptor antagonist, bosentan and ambrisentan are approved treatment of pulmonary artery hypertension. And bosentan initiated at 62.5 milligram BD for first month and increased to 125 milligram BD. And contraindications are like, be cautious when you are using it in a patient with the liver disease. Then we have an phosphodiesterase inhibitor, and among them sildenafil. And again, it's important to about the side effects. Then we have a prostacyclin analogs, ilioprost, and the most common, it should be given with inhalation, and the most common side effects are flushing and cough. And so hope you are atrial septoplasty is other blade balloon atrial septoplasty is performed in a patient with severe refractory RV pressure and volume overloaded. But I think this is more advanced to be discussed. So we discussed today about the definition, multiple groups of the pathophysiology, investigation and treatment. Hope you guys understand it. Have a good day and thank you.